my name is Gary Delaney. I'm a one-liner comic from Birmingham, and I just got back yesterday from the Edinburgh Festival. I haven't been up there for a month, telling rude jokes.
Stopped in a lane by, there was a sign saying no dumping. That was alright, I was just having a piss. There you go, that's what I was aiming for. Nearest road related. I've got a breakdown service for Scousers. It's called the AA. Calm down, calm down. They can't fix your car now, they'll need you a new one. I used to run a brickyard at Liverpool, but I came in one morning and it was up on wheels. I read the Old Testament for Scousers, it's like the normal one, but there's no job. There's any Scousers in your right to be offended, it's pronounced Job. I went to see the stalactites at Cheddar Gorge, and our guide asked us not to try and crack one off, and she wasn't even that attractive. Still managed. It was very dark. Malcolm X chose that name rather than admitting accidentally put a kiss at the end of a text message. I went to see Walt Disney on Ice. A bit disappointing, he's just an old bloke in a freezer.
So how did Edinburgh go? I guess it's a big comedy orgy, I guess.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, I've been going 10 years in November, and all of my peers did Edinburgh years ago, and I kept putting it off, and sort of thinking, I'm not sort of acted as well up there, but I decided to stop being such a pussy and to go up, and it went really well. I sold out every day, and I had good crowds. They nearly all went with the really dodgy stuff, apart from on a couple of nights when I was full of old gadgets who were horrified, and I really enjoyed it. I got good reviews, so yeah, I've had a good time. I mean, I went up thinking, right, I'm just going to go up once and prove I can do it, but now I'm thinking, I quite enjoyed that, I might go back. But it's ruinous financially, so I won't be going back for a while.
Yeah, I saw lots of Richard Herring's tweets saying it cost an absolute fortune just to put a show on there.
Well, I've sold out every day, and I'm still going to lose the best part of £10,000.
So why do so many people do it?
Because just to get work.
Yeah.
I live in Birmingham, and if I come and do gigs like tonight, come to Bury and then Portland near Blackpool, you're invisible to industry people. It doesn't matter how well you do. The industry people live in London, and they're not going to go to see comedy in clubs anyway. So if you want to get seen by them, that's what you have to do. So.
Yeah, cool. So I mean, like Edinburgh, I guess it's kind of like music festivals like Glastonbury, where people say, it's not the same as it used to be. Is that the case for Edinburgh?
Maybe, I don't know. People romanticise the days when it was shit and really shambolic and half-assed, and people didn't know what they were doing. I don't feel any great romance. I mean, it used to be the case that you didn't have to lose lots of money up there, but other than that, it's a lot more professional now, and a lot more people going on and doing proper funny shows rather than just wanking off for an hour. So no, I think it's better than it used to be.
Yeah. So
disagree with my colleagues. And want to do. So
talking of wanking off for a while, comedy is very much a man's game. What's it like when a female comic walks into a room?
It's all right. Yeah, it's once you it sounds poncy, but once you don the mantle of a clown, once you go on stage, you are a clown. It is irrelevant at that point whether you are a man or a woman, black, white, gay, Jewish, disabled, a midget. Who gives a? It doesn't really matter anymore. Once you go up there, you are a clown, and you are up there to make people laugh, and all the other distinctions fade. There used to be a lot of sexist bollocks spoke about women, and I don't really believe a lot of it. There are a huge amount of women in comedy. That's because less of them enter, and but I don't know why that's up to them. But it's rubbish. We used to go, women aren't very good at this. Yeah, people want to go, used to go, blacks aren't very good at this, or only Jews will be successful. It's all bollocks. Once you're a comic, everything else is irrelevant.
Yeah.
And people, just judge people by whether they're funny or not.
Yeah, cool. So, I mean, taking it back to the beginning, I mean, one thing we say about you is you've been described as a comic comedian Jimmy Carr wants to be. That's a big quote.
No, that was a plug I got on. I got a review on some BBC Lincoln website of a gig I did up there, and they gave me that quote, and I put it on a bio because it's always helpful to have the name of somebody more famous on a bio, and it's the thing people always quote on club posters, because that way they get to sort of get to mention somebody famous on their poster who they could never afford to come to their club. It's clearly bollocks. I met Jimmy a couple of times in Edinburgh. He's nice enough lad, but I don't believe that his ambitions, extend all the way to living in a rented flat in Birmingham when he's nearly 40. Somehow, I don't think that's what he's after. What they mean is, I'm a very pure one-liner writer. I just do gags and concentrate on the gags. So that's what they're trying to get at, and he's sort of the most famous of the gag merchants in this country. So that's what they're aiming at. But it's a nonsense quote. All of those, pretty much anything ever said by press, reviewers, critics, etc., is nonsense. Quite frankly.
So, I mean, one poster we saw on one of the posters was someone described themselves as a comic for the MySpace generation.
Oh, I was taking the piss out of that in Edinburgh. I do a lot of stuff on Twitter and muck about on there, and and I put some stuff on there because the Guardian were taking a little feed from it and using bits. But I saw somebody handing out their flyers trying to persuade people to come in, saying, yeah, and the quote, they were, you might pick a quote to try and drag them in. So, I would sometimes use that car one or whatever, Ace Comic, the Guardian or whatever. And the quote he was saying as he gave people his flyer was a comic for the MySpace generation, and it was so laughable that presumably that means that in the last 5 years he's not achieved anything or got any better quotes than that. I can't remember the lad's name, to be honest, but if that's the best quote you've got, my gosh, you need to do something about it.
So imagine if you got pigeonholed with a comedian for the Twitter generation.
Yeah, well, I might. I've marketed myself so much through it, and it's a hell of a lot of my audience in Edinburgh came through Twitter. So I have to be wary of that tag. I might. You see, I never got on Facebook. I'm not on Facebook, even though I do a joke about saying that I am. But I was on MySpace, and I dicked about on that a little bit, and then Facebook I just passed by, and then when Twitter came along, I thought, right, I can catch up on here. There's no point in trying to catch up on Facebook. That boat has sailed. So I don't know. But Twitter is well suited to one-liners. It's different to other formats in that you've got 140 characters to be funny, and I don't have to edit to fit in that. Most comics can't do that, but that's all I do anyway. And the other thing I like about it is somebody will only become your fan on Facebook or join your mailing list or whatever if they've seen you live or they've seen you on telly and they think you were good and they'd like to see you again, so they sign up for more information. Twitter works the other way around. People see your jokes and they see your jokes being retweeted with your name attached, because that's the convention on Twitter, and they go, I don't know who this guy is, but I've seen him do some funny jokes. They click in, they follow you, and then they come to your gigs, and it works the other way around. So even though I'm not by any standards a big name, and I've done dribs and drabs of TV but not a lot, I've got more than 10,000 followers on that just because I put up 2 or 3 jokes a day and have been for a year and a half. And that's a really powerful way of marketing yourself if you are essentially nobody.
So did you ever go on Friendster in the early days when you first started being a comedian and say, oh, you're going and working at McDonald's, I'm a comedian? Is that what you did?
Did I what? Sorry, go on
Friendster. Remember Friendster?
I remember.
No, Friends Reunited. That was it. That was the one.
I think I did have something on there saying that when I was doing like a couple of open spots and stuff, but I think didn't they used to charge for it or something? I was never really. I remember getting a couple of notifications off them saying, old school friends want to talk to you, and I'd click on the thing and it was asking me for money. So that was the end of Friends Reunited for me. Well, that was a long time ago.
Yes, I mean, when did you first start being a comedian? What makes a comedian say, I'm quite funny, I'm going to be a comedian?
Right. Common threads. There's an unusual mixture of arrogance and insecurity that you have to have, and that is common in all comedians, I think. It's a weird mix, but you have to have both or you wouldn't do it. But generally, I think everybody would say that they were the one their friends always said, you're a funny bastard, you should do this. Although, interestingly, once you have that outlet on stage, you become much less funny in real life. I certainly am. If I'm going to be funny down the pub, I want to be paid. So I'm not as funny in real life as I used to be. But then the other one is, you'd expect comedians to say they saw somebody and they were inspired and they wanted to be great like this guy. But most comics are actually inspired by somebody's shit. They go and see people who are terrible and think, I can do better than that. And a lot of people do, like I used to do, and worked on a sound desk or work at a club or doing the drinks or the chairs or whatever. So you got, Mike Manford was a barman at Frog and Bucket, wasn't he? And Jace Cook and Dan Nightingale were both sound men at the Hyena in Newcastle. And I did the sound at the Chuckle Club many years ago. And you're sitting there watching people week in, week out and going, this isn't magic what they're doing, this is something I could do. And you have a sort of ringside seat to study and learn the techniques. And then you watch somebody die and go, I can do better than that. That's largely how most people get into it. I also I used to write some jokes for an old college friend of mine, Martin Lewis, who was a very confident man who dabbled in stand-up. He's now a money-saving expert on telly, always telling people how to sort of save money on this, that and the other. And I wrote him this joke about nurses. I said, Martin, you've got to do that joke, it's awesome, that'll slay. And he did it twice and they said, I'm not doing that, it's not a funny joke, they're not laughing at it. I said, it is a funny joke, you're not doing it right. And there's only one way that conversation is going to end up, isn't it, basically? He basically betted me that I would never have the balls to do a gig, and I did. So that's that.
Yeah, so what was the actual first one-liner you used on stage that still stays to this day?
Don't know. The first joke I ever wrote was, I met a man who reminded me of my dad. He came up to me and said, don't forget your dad. I remember that. It's sort of, it's a reasonably good joke. The joke I wrote for Martin about nurses, in retrospect, he may have had a point. It's probably not as good as I thought, but it was quite a funny little joke. The joke was this: I heard, it's probably an old wives' tale, but I heard that when a man dies, all the sphincters of the man's body relax, so the body's prone to leaking from the penis and the anus and whatnot. So when a man dies in hospital, it's part of the nurse's job to tie a knot in his penis and put a cork up his anus. And the joke was, well, there's two very clear lessons that you can draw from that. One, never go out with a nurse. Or two, go out with a nurse. And that was that joke. And I think I try to remember what my opening line was on my first ever gig. It's quite hard to write an opening line. What did I have? It was something quite pretentious that didn't really work. I think it was, ladies and gentlemen, come with me and imagine a world without laughter. Germany, or something like that. I can't remember. Was it that? I can't remember. Something along those lines, and it was a bit too pretentious and didn't really work. I can't remember what it was.
So have you ever used your comedy to get you out of bad scrape, or one that got you in a bad scrape?
It's more like to get you in a scrape, isn't it, really, in terms of just saying a smart-ass thing and then suddenly people want to hit you. No, I don't know. People always talk about how comics use those, the wit in real life to get them in or out of trouble. I'm not sure that's really true. You don't really mouth off to the drunk guy on a Friday night because you know he's twice your size and he's going to hit you. Can you talk your way out of a conflict with a thug by being witty? Not really, no. You come out with some hilarious pun and they're just going to stab you. I think most of those stories are made up.
So one of our readers' questions was, if your style of comedy were translated into music, what musical style or genre would it belong to?
It'd probably be like the really short stoppy starts, is that like Napalm Death, that sort of stuff, like the songs are like 10 seconds long. That sort of thing. They do loads of 10-second, like they're really, like that. That's what sort of music I'd be. Yeah, cool. And the traditional comedy trajectory, usually comics start out of stand-up and then they go either to TV panel shows or books. Which one are you going to do? I'm not going to write a book. If I do write a book, it'll be a book of one-liners. I'm certainly not going to write a book with a story and characters and with a narrative arc and all that shit. No interest in that at all. But I might try and gather together all of my tweets and get that published, or do something like that. Books of packages of jokey stuff. But I'm not going to write a novel. Panel shows, I don't know. It'd be nice to get offered a bit of that stuff. I write for those things, but I'm rarely on them. I suspect that they generally want somebody a bit younger and better looking and with more interesting hair. So you'll probably see me, if you want to see me on one of those shows, look in the credits. That's normally where you'd see me.
Cool. And what's the plan for the rest of the year?
I started writing my 2012 Edinburgh show. So that's how long it takes to write them. It does if you're doing one-liners anyway, so that's number one. A lot of just gigging 6 nights a week, and the first thing, so I'm doing a bit of that. Taking a holiday for a week. I've got a lot of industry people to follow up with. I met all sorts of people up there. I've got to go and have follow-up meetings with them and see if any of those dreams they offered are real or whether they're all just bullshit. Who knows how that's going to go? I've got a suspicion, but we'll see. I've got to pay the bills from Edinburgh. I've been toying with the idea for the last year or so of putting together a CD of jokes. So I taking the Edinburgh show, cutting out all the poncy bits and all the linky stuff, and cutting it down to like 40 minutes of just the best gags, and putting that on a CD. I'm going to have a look at something like that. But I might, so hopefully I'm going to do something like that. That may not be right away. I might rejig some things and put some new bits in, or hopefully somebody's going to come up and offer me a DVD deal and loads of money, but I won't hold my breath. We'll see. So somehow or another there is going to be some sort of record of like a CD or a DVD or something of my best stuff, but it won't be in a hurry because I want to make sure it's my very best stuff, and I'd like to do it and make some money on it, but I want that to be like a record, a legacy. If I died tomorrow, my jokes would still be going around the world, and I quite like that idea, and I want to put down a CD as a marker. There's an enormous lot of comedy albums out there, but most of them are crap, and I'd like to make a really good one.